senatorial district. One thing, Mr. President, you have to understand that no matter how I'm being distracted, I'm very, very focused. First, I want to really commend you. And if I personally, and I know most of our colleagues here, we hold you in very, very high esteem. We've been on this mountain, going around this mountain for so long. I remember in the 7th Assembly, I spoke passionately on state policing, and we are here today. Even in the papers, some people are saying it's community policing, and the former DSP spoke strongly on state policing. Usually, I would not want to say much, but I've seen the devastation that insecurity has meted out to our people, I mean Nigerians, and the vulnerable group in particular, women and children. In the 8th Assembly, when I chaired the Women Committee briefly, I made a trip to Borno State and I visited some IDP camps. I saw the worst cases of malnutrition that I've never seen. I took several pictures. I couldn't believe that the children are even humans. But I haven't said that because I only have 3 minutes. I want to really talk about state policing. That's why I said we've gone this mountain for too long. But we believe that during your time, we can do the right thing. Even a baby, when you have a baby, they don't walk immediately. You teach them how to take baby steps. Some states, I'll use Lagos State for an example, because Lagos is usually like a model state. We have, it's a known fact that we operate community, we call them neighborhood watch. Some people were saying Amotekun. I said we have Amotekun in form of OPC. So Lagos State is replete of security doing details doing different activities. We have security for our traffic that are called LASMA. But I will tell you categorically that we've not abused the use of a federal police presence in the state. Everybody knows what they are supposed to do. Yes, state policing. If we want to go there, they should allow some states who are ready. Why are we always afraid to even jump into the water? Can you give me a minute? So why are we always afraid to go into the water, despite we don't even know how deep it is? So we've gone past this day. If we really want to tackle our security issues correctly, we should look at state policing. Community policing and state policing, we are saying the same thing, only just different sides of our mouth. Who is the one funding community policing? State government. Who is the one going to fund state police? State government. So we should allow them in the climes and that advanced countries where this is being practiced. We can learn from them. We talk about the world best practices. We should look at them and study them and let them give us solutions. I believe in you, Mr. President, to do it this time, because we've been going around since 7th Assembly. So we can do it now. This is the time for you, and God will help you.
Before Senator Juma Goja makes his contribution.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleague, because of the time, I will want to be as brief as possible. And in doing that, I have highlighted just the salient point that we use to guide my contribution on this particular issue. Number one, the 8th Senate report on the security conference that was organized by the 8th Senate. I think we should bring back this report, revisit it, and all recommendations in that report should be looked into. And I'm happy that the Senate President was the chairman of that particular committee, and he worked closely with the leader of the Senate on this all-important report. I think it will do us a lot of good in giving suggestions to the executive on this matter. Secondly, we want to thank the service chiefs. They've done well. They've contributed their own quota. But I believe it is time for them to go. The president needs fresh ideas. fresh strategies that will guide him towards looking into the security challenges currently confronting us as a nation as soon as possible. Thirdly, we equally want to thank the Nigerian police, who have done well in securing our nation for the last 50-something years. They have equally done well. They've contributed their own quota towards the nation building in trying to ensure that every 200 million Nigerians are safe. But you will quite agree with me, the number of Nigerian police, compared with the trend in the population, is not enough to continue to carry out this all-important exercise. To that extent, we are calling on the federal government and the Senate as a major legislative intervention for the creation of state police by amending the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as soon as possible. I want to congratulate the Southwest governor for coming up with the idea of Amotekun. This has forced everybody to go back to the drawing board and looking at it from the angle that there is need for us to take care of our security situation in our various states. Mr. President, the creation of state police will achieve, among other things, one, it will take care of all these little security outfits that have been set up once and for all, and they will be constitutionally backed for them to operate effectively. Secondly, Senator Danjuma Goje mentioned the issue of unemployment. Mr. President, I believe creation of state police will lead to generation of employment. Thousands of Nigerians will be employed in their numbers across the nation building. And a lot of funding has also been raised as an issue. 1% police fund that has been set up by this Senate and being released to this police. What are they using it for? Go to some BPO stations, 10,000 naira is given to them from the headquarters as their running cost. This is an eyesore. How do you want commitment from this kind of police? So a lot needs to be done in this regard. So in creating a state police, and as for the fears that the governors will have total control, it's not going to be true. The election, as it affects the federal election, should be handled by the federal government and the federal police. While the state electoral commission, as we currently have it, should be handled by the state local government election. We will solve the problem. So I want us to be dispassionate about this and look at it from the point of view. Also, Mr. President, I want to say this. There is still for us to mandate the Senate Committee on Custom to find out something very, very salient about our border. Is it true that the land border in the north is not closed? Because I am taken aback. If day in, day out, thousands of people are killed in the up north, and these people killing us are not Nigerians, so how do they enter our country? So there is urgent need for the Senate Committee on Custom to go on a fact-finding mission to know what the true position about the land border closure is in the northern part. There is urgent need for that, or else we will continue to go round. Also, Mr. President, the uncompleted building in our dear nation. There is urgent need for the Nigerian police, as it were, to go around and comb all the uncompleted building in this country. These people that have invaded our nation, where are they sleeping? At the end of the day, there is urgent need for us to do all of this, so as to stem the tide of insecurity that has taken over the situation, the security situation in our dear nation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Deputy Leader.
In our legislative debate. And I want to start by saying that I wholeheartedly support this motion on security. Mr. President, there's nobody in doubt that we have security challenges in this country. At the same time, nobody can say that the government is not making effort to address those challenges. And that is why I want to correct what the minority leader said. What the president said, he didn't say that he's shocked that there's insecurity, but he's shocked that there's rise in security, which means that despite the effort that the federal government is making, there is still rise in security issues. And I think that needs to be corrected. Mr. President, the success of 9/11 disaster in the U.S. is a result of lack of coordination of intelligence among the security agencies in the U.S. And immediately after that, the Homeland Security was established. Sir, sometime in the last Senate, there was a sort of disagreement between two security organizations in this country, Senate had to set up a committee under Senator Ali Mekana. And what we found was very, very unfortunate. That there's lack of communication among the intelligence agencies in this country. And that has contributed a lot to our problem of insecurity. And at the time, we had cause to invite the NSA to the Senate to brief us on security issues. And we found that there's a lacuna in the law that set up the Office of the National Security Officer. We also suggested to him to bring a draft that will address that lacuna. But up to now, I don't think that has been done. So intelligence is very, very important. Sir, we all hands must be on the deck, whether at the local level or the state level or at the federal level. But one thing is that the democracy which we are copying, which is the US democracy, it has federal police, it has state police, it also has community police. But we cannot establish a state police without putting check and balances. In the US, where there's state police, the police is not under the governor. There's attorneys. At the state level, you have state attorney that controls the police, that also controls the judiciary. At the district level, we also have the district attorney. So, sir, anybody who has been in opposition with his governor will not advocate for state police. Those who want state police, we must introduce that amendment. The state police cannot be under the state governor. It should be under the state attorney that is elected on non-partisan basis. That is what I will support. And as I said, Mr. President, there is no disagreement. If you want to have community police, fine. If you want to have state police, fine. But, Mr. President, let me say this. We must also look at the Interior Ministry. Our porous border is the failure. Our porous border is the failure of the immigration. Immigration is regarded as the border police. And as you said, some of the people perpetrating these evil things in our country are not Nigerians. So we need to beef up the number of people and gadgets that the immigration police is using. Finally, Mr. President, we are in a technological age. We must use technology in securing our nation. Now you use drones. And I think I want to appreciate what is done in Anambra, where the government has imported motorized surveillance vehicles that is using, in ensuring their security. And I'm told that the insecurity level in Anambra is 0. Now, we can look at it. Finally, sir, when we...
That will be the second.
Diagnostic analysis of the problem. I want to thank you, and I hope that at the end of this debate, under your guidance and leadership, we will arrive at a solution. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Theodi Oju Uchendu.
Was headlines in virtually all major newspapers of this country, where you said that the architecture of our security is not working. And today, the president, in response to this position, expressed shock and is all over the headlines. The reason why these two statements made headlines is because they are statements of fact, and it's the truth that this architecture is not working, and of course the president is shocked. Why is it not working? What's the evidence of that? And where is Mr. President shocked? I just have information to share. The Fund for Peace and the Foreign Policy magazine in Nigeria published a report in 2019 and ranks Nigeria number 14 on the list of fragile states all over the world. Nigeria is ahead of Yemen, of Somalia, South Sudan, Central African Republic, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. Yes, those are the countries that are in worse situations of fragile states than Nigeria. Mr. President, in a normal circumstance, states like Nigeria should have the monopoly of the use of legitimate violence. Nigeria has lost that monopoly to warlords, paramilitary groups, armed gangs, terrorist groups, including ethnic and religious militias. In November last year, I was in Borno State with the Committee on Army on oversight. We could not travel beyond a few kilometers outside Maiduguri because we were told that Boko Haram has taken over the outskirts of Maiduguri. And Maiduguri was under a threat of invasion by Boko Haram. Nigeria is at war. And let nobody be deceived. Because what happened in Syria started like this. It was like skirmishes all over the place before the meltdown started. The time for rubber to meet the road has come. And we can no longer play ostrich and pretend that nothing is happening. You said it, and the president agreed. There is social tension in this country, and there is discord between the elite. There is no consensus. There is no elite consensus on the problem of the nation. Why? Ethnicity, religion, and corruption is not allowing the elite to come together to face the problem of this country, of which security is number one. Mr. President, I want to speak to facts. The African Leadership Center of King's College London published in 2008 a regional security report on West Africa. In that report, Nigeria accounted for 54% of recorded violent events in the whole of West Africa. And as we speak, Nigeria is the one that is shaping the trend and patterns of violent events and fatalities in West Africa. Mr. President, there is a delegitimization of the Nigerian state by hostile, progressively violent non-state actors. And of the estimated 500 million illicit small arms that is circulating West Africa, Nigeria is holding 70%. This is by the United Nations Center for Peace and Disarmament. What are we saying? Mr. President, let's face the fact. We are facing a crisis. And the time to hold on to it is now. On policing, I have a list here of 7 federations all over the world. 7 federations. India, Nigeria, Switzerland, USA, Canada, Australia, Brazil. Of these 7 that I have here, there are several other federations. Nigeria is the only nation within this federation that does not allow state police. In all of these countries, they have the federal police and they have the provincial or state police with different jurisdiction, different set of crimes, and of course, constitutional statutes and laws that defines jurisdictions and responsibility. Nigeria cannot continue to operate an aberration that is different from global experience and expect to get different results. There's no reason why the security situation in Nigeria should be the exclusive responsibility of the federal government. Policing cannot be a monopoly of the federal government. Whether in private sector or in public sector, monopolies breed abuse. Monopolies breed abuse and inefficiency. States should have a right of choice. In this federation, states must have a right of choice. Any state that does not want a state police is free to contract the federal police to police its states. And those states that believe they can handle their own police system should be allowed to do so. This is a democracy and we must respect freedom. Mr. President, finally,
round it up, please.
Finally, this country is operating 1943 Police Act with skeletal amendments that are barely editorial. 76 years, pre-colonial. Mr. President, the time for change has come. And there's nothing we can do about it because change is the only permanent experience in humanity. We cannot resist change. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Mohammed Bima.
And I remember in that discussion, I gave a very passionate speech in which I said there was a sense of helplessness and hopelessness in the land. And I'm surprised that up till now, not much has been done. If you remember, Mr. President, even one of our elder revered statesmen lost his daughter to bandits. And now as we speak, up till today, nothing has been done to that effect. Mr. President, the issue of security cannot be taken in isolation. I took the time over the holiday to reflect on the state of the country, and to be honest with us, if we need to be honest, it was very worrisome. There is a correlation between the rise in unemployment and poverty and the rise in security. You cannot take one out of the other. And as long as you continue to have high unemployment, high poverty rate, you're going to have security issues. We have proliferation of arms all over the country that needs to be mopped up by the security agencies. And apart from that, there's also need. I support the need, whether it's states, whether it's regional, for them to consider a security architecture that is homegrown, that they know all the terrains and they can use to defend themselves, especially in the absence of a federal agency. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues have said that there's a need to look at our borders. If you look at a lot of the people coming to the country, I've heard that a lot of them are coming from some of these neighboring countries. There's a need for us to have border reforms alongside with some of our security, restructuring of our security architecture in this country. So, Mr. I think everything has to be taken in a holistic view. We need to take a look at it. We need to find a way. We need to find a way. One of the issues, let me give you a small example, Mr. President. If you look at Lagos now, there's an explosion of all these Okada riders in Lagos that's taken all over the place. A lot of these people, they have no identity, they have no names, you don't know where they sleep. And these are the kind of things that is happening all around the country, that there's need for some kind of a federal government to have an identity of all these guys that are all over the place, that we don't even know who they are. Some of them may have come in from other countries. And these are all kinds of challenges that security people need to take up for us to have a more secure environment. So for me, I think there's a need to take a holistic view and a comprehensive look at all this. There's a need to take a look at how our security situation also relates to our poverty situation, to unemployment. We need to take a look at mopping up a lot of the prevalence of arms around the country. We need to take a look at all these people that are just coming into the country, that they have no identity, and they're all over the place. So these are some of the issues that I think we need to take a look at to resolve some of our security issues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Aishatu Dahiru Ahmed.
Rub minds on way of improving our security in this country. Mr. President, I will just go straight to the point. First, we should speak on those things that will unite us and talk less about those that will divide us. Where we find ourselves now, Mr. President, I think it would be unfair to castigate the police or even any of these our security agencies Truth is this, if we have just 300 and something, there is no way that 300 will be adequate. So the best thing to do is to allow each and every state to have their own police. That will not mean that we will not still have federal police. We can have federal police as well as have the state police. Indeed, there is no state in Nigeria, because I know we meet as governors, that doesn't fund the police, that doesn't fund the security of their respective states. I know the fears, there are fears, well-founded fears, that when governors are allowed to have their state to control their security, their police, that they will misuse it. But I tell you here, with all sense of responsibility, what we stand to benefit and gain by having governors to be in charge of their security is far more. In fact, when you look at the negative bit of it, it's so infinitesimal. Sabi. Now, what we should do, we may even say maybe for our election, if that is why we are afraid, that the federal police should be in charge of the elections. But for everyday security, we need to have our state police to be in place. People have called it several names. They have neighborhood watch, community watch, whatever the name that we are calling it. There is no state government that is not funding the police as we speak. I remember quickly, Mr. President, even though they politicized this, as governor, I was supporting the police throughout. And that is why we are able to record all of those successes that we have. Another thing, Mr. President, it is our porous borders as we speak, because I'm now speaking about Nigeria. Our borders are very porous. And that's why it's so easy for people from bandits from Libya, from Mali, from everywhere to just infiltrate our country. When you notice, before now, we have people everywhere. We weren't killing ourselves like this. So we need to do something about our porous borders. The third one, we should use technology. And we've talked about it. I remember during those days, kidnapping and all of that, what we need to use. Trackers will sort it out. Look at this, our SIM registration. It's only in Nigeria that anybody will just go and register anyhow. All of them, we can use technology to actually fight, to actually curb this crime that is we are having. So, for me, on this state police, I rather have 1,000 millionaires than have just 1 billionaire. So let all of the states have their police, but we should have a central police, federal, for anything that we think is strategic and important. Those one will be for the federal. But for the everyday security of our people, we should have the state police. Mr. President, I think I will want to just
stop there.
Stop here so that I can now...
Thank you very much. Senator Yusuf A. Yusuf.
And I know you are not responsible. And I don't hold any of my colleagues here individually responsible. Even President Buhari is not responsible. We need to understand who we are and our history to even understand why we are where we are. We must not forget our over 300 years of slavery and plundering as a people. We must not forget that that was followed by another 100 years from 1861 to 1960 of colonial exploitation of our land. And then, of course, 29 years of military intervention in our politics and many years of civilian misrule. This administration has been there since 2015. And there's no doubting the fact that the impunity that had become the order of the day in this country is fast becoming a thing of the past. But Mr. President, it is not yet Uhuru, and that's why everybody is concerned. Let us not pretend. How we handle these matters is what will determine the content and character of our soul. And we are at a point where no one can afford to pretend as an elected representative of the people. Anyone who is being quiet or who is pretending about this is either an unpatriotic observer or a traitor. Mr. President, our old order is crumbling. That is the issue. It is not a peculiarity of Nigeria. Other civilized societies went through this. But when an old order is crumbling, it doesn't matter who's responsible. What is important that those who are in control must be ready to fix the crisis. Even if we are not responsible, we will be guilty of conspiracy if we don't do what we are supposed to do. Legislative intervention, enduring legislative intervention. We can stay here and talk about community policing, which no one has been able to define. We can stay here and talk about recruiting more policemen. We can talk here and talk about more funding. Our people, those that we represent, are saying there is a need to address certain issues. Mr. President, you addressed this issue 2 days ago, decisively. The need to restructure our security architecture. Restructuring is something that will permeate, many areas of our life. However, how can we talk about restructuring our security architecture if the whole world is talking about a new world police order? Because the old order is crumbling or has crumbled in many parts of the world. The whole world is talking about new world economic order. The world is talking about new world political order. We are seated here finding it difficult to respond to our own order that is crumbling. We need to change our security architecture, primary among which, Mr. President, is the fact that we need a new police order in this country. There is a difference between federal police and national police. Federal police is what we have, and it is what has not been able to serve us. It was good. It served. Even under Adewusi and every other person, it was okay. In 2020, the new order, Nigeria must not be left behind. Mr. President, legislative intervention is what we need. Why is it so difficult to amend our constitution? Who is afraid of this state police that will...
You can round up.
Those who don't want it don't have to have it.
Please distinguish, round up.
The same motion that was defeated by the 8th Assembly back for consideration of the 9th Assembly. Let every member of the 9th Senate take a position on it. I am not speaking for anybody. I'm speaking for the people who elected me to represent them. Our people want the need to restructure our security architecture. We want state police. Our people also feel our service chiefs have stayed for too long. And there is a need. If we are told that a service chief has served for 40 years in the service, by 2020, there are 2 streams every year of graduating officers. It means 9 streams of officers are being retired or have served without an offer.
Distinguished, I think you have to say it's enough. Sir. Thank you. Deputy Minority Leader.